vehicle rather than going down and being reimbursed for mileage and things of that nature.
So how many vehicles total does that mean the jail will have?
3. The 2003 F350 or E350 from the Sheriff's Office, the 2007 Charger, and then this one.
Jason, doesn't the RSA say the sheriff's in charge of transportation? Sheriff Carr must have shown it to me 15 times, telling me he was the most important law enforcement.
From the jail to the courthouse. They have
That's
to go
all.
to doctor's appointments.
Right.
Have to go pick somebody up in another county to bring them back.
That falls on the jail.
Yes.
Even with the going to the courthouse, the sheriff doesn't take over until they get to the courthouse. Is that right?
No.
No, the sheriffs do the transport to the courthouse.
They transport them too.
Correct.
What percentage of the time do you estimate that all 3 vehicles will be in use at once?
Well, if I start my community service program, quite a bit.
The other alternative would be to put the burden on the sheriff to transport in the case of emergency where he has 2 vehicles out.
Does that really put a burden on the sheriff?
Have to ask the sheriff.
Ask him the question in writing. Jason, you can't get one of the sheriff's vehicles? I don't see this thing being used every single day, 100 miles a day. You can't get a second a lease that's run out from the sheriff and get one of his vehicles?
I don't know if they have any four-wheel drive vehicles available.
Yeah, but how many times you get stuck?
Oh, last year I had an inmate, an officer transporting an inmate that got stuck over in Guilford, that the Guilford Police Department had to go grab and, the ambulance had to go grab and bring him to the hospital, and then we had to go pick up the cruiser. So we did have an incident last year where the officer was stuck in it.
But that's like one time in 30 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard to use those odds to justify you doing anything else.
I think you get a little pushback on that one, Jason. You know, maybe a car from the sheriff.
We can check to see what's up. He's purchasing them now rather than leasing them. So maybe there's one that trade in, not 4-wheel drive. But
So, Mr. Commissioner, what do we do when we come up with a question like this and we're not sure? Do we make a suggestion, or you make a suggestion, or we leave it wide open, or what?
you make a suggestion and we'll try to follow up on it. And if your suggestion is check with the sheriff's department, I can do that, or we can do that.
What do you think, gentlemen?
Well, I'd like to see what the sheriff done. If he's got 3 cars and the sheriff's got, I don't know how many cars. And the other thing too, I know from a town standpoint, when one department gets rid of something because they need it, then sometimes we transfer it to another department. So maybe that could save you some money there. And I don't even know if that's possible. But
I believe, don't hold me to this, I believe there's one cruiser that sits out there that's not being used.
well, then that's a.
So I will follow up on it and let you know.
Thank you.
I don't think it'll do any good, to tell you the truth.
What do you mean?
We're not going to get into that discussion.
Yeah.
It won't get transferred?
Never mind, Mr. Marine. We're not going to get
If we
into
can buy it for $1, if it's on a lease, then we can buy it for $1.
No, I'm talking about the sheriff chipping in and helping.
Oh,
We're not discussing that, Mr. McCarthy. Here we go.
You're getting brainwashed.
Vehicle expense. Why a large increase there, Jason?
Because of the digital radio system that we need.
Well, tell us about that.
It's because, well, a number of years ago, the statewide went to a digital radio system, got rid of the analog system, and we only have the analog system at this point. We don't have the ability to talk to.
You can't communicate there.
Correct.
How many vehicles?
That would be for 3.
Okay, so it costs about,
For one radio,
$3,000.
it's $3,500, I believe.
Okay. That's
Dave, you wanted to,
The increase, predominantly communications,
Yes.
the increase,
I think when the commissioners looked at his budget, I think we cut out the radios, but I would rather see the radios in there and cut out on the guns. I think the radios, if a car breaks down, going somewhere, they need to be able to call somebody. Right now, they'd probably have to go to the closest gas station or the closest home. So I think they need to have the radios in the vehicles.
What about
The
cell
ambulance,
phones?
the ambulance and the fire departments
Well, they
are
do
still
have cell
using,
phones, you're right.
still using analog, they're not using digital.
Who is?
The ambulances and the fire departments, at least in our town, they're still using
Yeah,
it.
that's.
And they go through dispatch, so why, so if you've already got radios in there to go to dispatch, why can't you use it?
Their law enforcement is all digital. Fire department and ambulance, you're right, sir, they have not changed over to the analog, to the digital system from the analog. But all the law enforcement agencies are
Sheriff
all,
has gone to digital.
yeah, everybody's gone
Okay.
digital.
I stand a little bit corrected. Asher says, why not use a cell phone? How many cell phones do we have? I think we only have 3. Is that right?
The department
You're in,
the department doesn't own any cell phones, those are personal cell phones.
Yeah, but they get paid,
I
because
thought-
they get reimbursed.
you have one,
And Captain Fowler does.
Captain Fowler has, and maintenance has.
Right.
There's 3.
Yep.
So we don't have cell phones in the vehicles.
So buy 3 cell phones, it'd be cheaper than buying a radio.
Yeah, but the county is paying for the cell phones,
Well, the counties are paying for the radio too.
Yeah.
so they say they have cell phones, but you pay for
So,
them.
so get 3 if that's really what you're using it for, why not get a cell phone for each car? Be cheaper than taking care of the radios.
There's
I guess the
sporadic cell coverage, when,
Yeah.
like when you go up to, we're doing a transfer to, say, Coas County, you go up above Berlin, you have zero cell
Yeah,
coverage.
that's true.
And plus, if you're in an emergent situation, you can try to have an officer dial a cell phone to talk to dispatch.
Okay.
Just,
Why don't you put a radio in one car if you're going up north? Because I think the
Yeah.
rest, the other places you have good coverage. I'm not-
but
You know, Wakefield, you don't have coverage there.
to put a radio in only one car, if that car goes out on a transport, then the other officer, whoever's doing another transport, has
So
no,
you do a lot of transports at the same time?
we do, sometimes we have multiple transports going on. Yes, ma'am?
that's one that needs to be looked at.
If we need the radios, why are we paying for all the cell phones? What are the cell phones being used for?
Because if they have to call the superintendent or the captain, or because something happens with the generator, maintenance has to come in, so they have to be called. Cell phone coverage.
I think Commissioner Kenny's got the same question I got. You got the sheriff's department, you see them sitting on the side of the road talking on their cell phones all the time. Why you need both?
Maybe that's not business. When they sit inside the road
Well,
talking.
then we shouldn't be paying for it if it's not business.
Have to ask the sheriff that question.
You know,
I don't know the
I've
answer.
always felt there was an overlap between cell phones and radio service, and one or the other, I would think, would do the job.
Except the radios are probably more reliable than cell phones. That's the only
Yeah.
Yeah.
thing you sold me on it. When you're right, you get a lot of dead areas around. If you get caught in a dead area, you're in trouble.
You get caught, as you're talking, it goes off.
Yeah.
And why should we be paying for a cell phone if they're gonna use a radio?
We only had 3 cell phones.
I'm not talking about Jason, I'm talking
Okay.
about the sheriff's
Back on
department.
the subject,
I thought we
like you
were
said
talking
a few
about the
minutes
jail.
ago.
Okay. Let's move on. Generator expense,
Now, what do we, what's the decision on the vehicle expense? We're talking about communications, I don't see why it's in vehicle expense anyway, but that's beside the point. We just going with the 16.6?
I put a star beside it, Frank. We need to look into that one some more, get some more information.
Under
Okay.
generator expenses, $2,718. That's the service contract plus fuel. Care of grounds, $7,892, and that deals with our trash removal, bucketing of snow from around the facility, salt and sand.
Oh, with the new truck and the sander, why is it going up?
Gotta pay for it somehow.
What's that? We have for. Did I put that?
I mean, they just bought a new truck, sanders, plow, snow blower, and all the rest of it. You know, you'd think that the cost would go down.
We budgeted $500 for salt and sand. So we have to buy a portion of the sand and the salt that gets put in our parking lot. And then we budget $4,800 for snow removal and sanding and things of that nature.
Well, haven't you been doing that in the past, though? Paying your percentage of each of them?
Yes.
So that doesn't answer the question of why it's going up $700.
I'd have to look and see, and know we changed.
Unless the cost of sand's gone up.
Maybe sand and salt has. Plus, we went to waste management, so I'm not sure if there's an increase in our trash removal. Looking at an average monthly cost of $205 for the trash, and that budgeted out is $2,400.60.
Yeah, I'm sure you must have had something in mind, or somebody did, when they came up with the figures. I'd just like to know, you know, with all the money that we just spent on the truck and the sander and all the rest of it, why is the cost of doing it going up $700? Just for, you know, if it goes up proportionately with the rest of the county, you're talking about going up $3,000 or $4,000. And we just spent all that money for a truck and a plow and a sander and all the rest of it, yet it's gonna cost us $4,000 more a year to do it, to use it? Something wrong.
Well, I can only tell you that I purchased $500 worth of sand and salt. So that's what I budgeted for.
Yeah, but you did that last year too, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That doesn't account for an increase.
The only thing that I can say is it's probably in the trash.
Could be trash.
Trash expenses.
We'll look at it.
Could you check on it?
Would you look that up, Jason?
Sure.
Because the trash removal, the new contract with waste, I'm thinking back, didn't go up that much, and the haul was about the same. So there's got to be somewhere in there. There has to be what, $800 that you got to account for, or $600.
$676.
Unless there's a good reason for it. I'm looking at your ability or the authority that we will have under the budget to get these new people. The lower we can get these numbers, the more apt you are to get the people you need. You know what I mean? So if there's no real need for that additional 617, I know it's a fairly small number, but if there's no real need for it, let's not do it. Let's, you know, it'll help us get the people we need to run the jail properly.
It's 676. The other one's January.
Okay, next.
Under building maintenance, $34,075.
That's down $16,000.
I just had that page too.
How'd you do that?
What's that?
How did
I
you do that?
Looked at what we had spent so far this year and just looked at I broke it out. If under